According to the Con Artist Handbook, when emotion and reason clash, emotion wins almost every time. This little handbook goes on to say, appeal to emotion. Even if your appeal defies logic, reason, and common sense, a great many of the sheep will simply follow along. Hi, I'm John Rose. In 4 days, I'll be celebrating my 67th birthday. And I get really reflective at this time of year, and I can't help but think of this Con Artist Handbook and how important this handbook is for the vast majority of us to read and understand it. Because if you really don't understand how con artists think and work, which most people should not, unless you study it, then you won't be able to really evaluate what's happening around the planet right now. You have to understand who's behind the curtain, folks. These people are psychopaths, and all psychopaths are con artists. Published a video just the other day, how everything can be explained with magic. Because these psychopaths, these con artists, they fancy themselves as magicians. So watch this very long video, hour and a half long, where I go into my files and I show you my Con Artist Handbook file. So we can understand how to evaluate information. Because we're given an official version, and then there's another version that goes around, which usually comes from controlled opposition, so it's real difficult to ascertain how much of this we can believe. And the only way you can really make sense out of both of these versions is if you understand how to find the flaws. So if you don't understand how a con artist thinks, if you don't understand how a psychopath thinks, then it's going to be very difficult for you to see the deception that's being used whenever we're giving phony stories. So the powers that be in this Con Artist Handbook, they had 14 factors we can count on. Number 2 is when emotion and reason clash, emotion wins almost every time. These guys know that. And that was the basis behind a video I did a while back that I should have titled Satan Worshippers' Secret Weapon. But I shortened it down and I said Satan's secret weapon. It's really the people who worship Satan, it's their weapon. They know that when it comes to tricking everybody, all they have to do is push our emotional button. So that's what Satan's secret weapon is, or the worshipper's weapon, is they make sure we believe in absurdities. Remember what Plato said, those who tell the stories rule society. So throughout our upbringing, ever since I've been born for 67 years, every day, as soon as I could watch something and hear something, they were tricking me and making me believe in certain beliefs, so that all they had to do is just say a word or two and it would trigger my emotional response. So no matter how illogical it was and how it lacked reason and common sense, it wouldn't matter, because they pushed our emotional button. Please watch Satan's secret weapon, realizing it's the people who worship Satan, it's their weapon. They know that to rule the world, you got to control the mob. It's all an information war, folks. The mob is out of control. Unless you understand how algocracy, which is what happens when the mob is out of control, unless you understand how algocracy creates our need for government, and unless you understand how the dependency stage in democracy is what destroys our democracies, unless you understand that, you'll never realize that none of our governments are going to be able to solve any of our problems. They're just going to continue to chase shadows, or they're going to fight shadows. That's what we got now. When we look at our government, the false left-right paradigm, both sides are fighting shadows. Remember, we're in Plato's cave. And once you come out of Plato's cave, you then need to learn what it takes to become a philosopher king. That means you go back down into this cave of ignorance and you gather knowledge on the hero's journey, especially the obstacles. So you can identify all those layers and obstacles that are keeping people inside Plato's cave. Because that's what this is all about, folks. We have to realize that we've got to be the example. We got to go back down into Plato's cave and and talk to all of our friends and family and everyone else who will listen and help them show how to get out of this cave of ignorance where the powers that be have put books of bullshit in our brain. Think of an idea as a tabletop with no legs, or a book with covers and no pages. A belief then would be a tabletop with legs, and those legs would be the references, or a belief would be the pages within, or the references would be the pages within that book. So imagine we've got these books of baloney in our brain that they've been putting in pages or at the tabletop, and they're building these real strong legs that are references to make us believe in these things. And every time we turn around, we're putting in more pages in this book, and right now they're putting so many pages with what they're forcing us to do right now in this one book that I call the Contagion Myth book, that most people can't even entertain the idea that it could possibly not be true. But remember what Aristotle said, the mark of an intelligent mind is the ability to entertain an idea without accepting it. So that's what we have to realize and understand. We should entertain the idea that we have this belief that we're passing on our illnesses through microbes or things we can't see. You're either going to focus on the germ theory of disease or the terrain theory, folks. And what I'm asking people to do is let's entertain the terrain theory. Let's entertain the idea that germs are not the sole cause of disease. And that shouldn't be hard to understand if you do a little research on this and find out that people with diphtheria, not all of them have the germ. And tuberculosis, the same thing for a lot of diseases. People will have these symptoms, but there won't be the germ. That's why we know the germ theory of disease has never been proven. But it's what they teach to our so-called experts, and that's all they know. And it's real hard for them to come out of that cave of ignorance they've been put in. Their books are so big, they want to protect those books. And the rest of us, what we have to do is entertain the idea that some of those books are not true. But the problem, we've got way too many pages inside these books. And today, every time you turn around, page after page after page after page, thousands of pages everywhere you look. And you see people behaving the way they're doing based on what we're being told to do under this non-emergency situation. And it's very difficult to see the deception unless you actually go out of your way and study the Con Artist Handbook. Study psychopathy. We have to understand our enemy, folks. The enemy is us. This is a reflection of us. And to a degree, all of us have a few psychopathic tendencies and some con artist tactics that we use all the time. The most common one you see is to divert attention, right? We learn that at an early age, don't we? Oh my God, I broke the lamp over there. As soon as my parents start yelling at me about the lamp, I go, well, my brother, he killed the cat. Oh my God. Let's forget about me, let's talk about him. So that's a con artist tactic, and you see it quite often. They use red herrings, they use straw men. They rely on the fact that when emotion and reason clash, the emotion wins most every time. Doesn't matter if what you say makes any sense at all. Just push the button, they got so many references, they're going to believe that. So, how do we burn these books of bullshit in our brain? I'm convinced that most people have too many references. And it's almost impossible to burn those books. That's why we got to go back to Aristotle one more time. Believe only your own experience. There's no fact like a fact learned from your own life. The problem with that, unfortunately, is we do build up a tolerance to our mistakes. And I even identify that as the fifth problem of knowledge that we have, a malfunctioning survival mechanism. Not much different than if we smoke some cigarettes and we start coughing. But if we keep smoking them, we build up a tolerance to them, and next thing you know, we're smoking a pack or two a day. It may take a couple decades before we start coughing again, but now we're coughing up blood. And again, I get really reflective at this time of year, and I was thinking just recently how been watching a lot of old TV shows that I would have watched when I was 6 to 10 years of age or so, like The Twilight Zone. Couldn't help but notice, especially in these older movies, how many people are smoking cigarettes. No surprise, as a young boy, I wanted to go out and find out how cool that was. My parents smoked, and everyone's smoking on TV. It's got to be pretty cool, right? I remember I got some little corn cob pipe somewhere and some smoking tobacco. I think I might even taken some cigarettes and broken them up and used the tobacco from there or something. Went out in the woods and puffed on that pipe, saying, okay, what am I missing? Of course, you started coughing, right? And sure enough, if I didn't start smoking cigarettes later on in life, and I smoked them for way too many years, man, as soon as I decided to quit, I quit them overnight. It wasn't hard for me to quit once I decided to do so. But I sure knew what it was like to smoke and not have to cough. And that same thing happens to us, folks. We have a malfunctioning survival mechanism. We're fed the wrong foods at a very early age. We get sick. Colic is the first sign that we're sick as little infants. And we go to our so-called experts, and they don't know this. They don't know what's going on. So they think it's a germ, so they give an antibiotic. That's why, in order to make sense out of this, one of the first things we have to do is address this malfunctioning survival mechanism. And the only way to do that is by taking a solid food vacation, whether it's on water or juices. Monarch just flew right by me here. When we do that, we break the spell. Remember Plato, whatever deceives men seems to produce a magical enchantment. When we alter our food, especially when we cook it, we create brand new colors, aromas, and flavors that didn't exist before. And they molest our eyes and our nose and our taste buds, and ultimately create a false hunger in our stomach. So when we are at a point where we perceive our withdrawal symptoms, that's hunger. Very few people understand that. They think that when they have this all-gone feeling in their stomach, that they're hungry. Now they're angry or hangry because they're not getting their drug of choice. And yet when you take a solid food vacation on water and you have the right mindset, you know that the hunger pains should go away within 3 or 4 days, and they do. As long as you don't think you're dying at the same time, you won't continue to have those feelings. That's why it's so important when you undertake a solid food vacation on water, you have the right mindset, that you're not afraid of the fast. You understand how it's going to heal you in a way that's as miraculous as a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, because it's the same type of metamorphosis that can happen when we let nature heal our bodies and get rid of things inside us that don't belong there. But of course, as I mentioned many times in my videos, taking a solid food vacation on water is a difficult thing to do nowadays because it's hard to take a vacation from life due to our family and financial responsibilities. That's why I like the solid food vacation on juices, but it accomplishes the same thing. Allows us to take back control over the things that are controlling us. And then it gives us a chance to reset that feedback system we have. Remember, we got 3 stages of knowledge. We have our belief system, our lifestyle choices in this feedback system, and that's where our diseases are at. But right now we have this malfunctioning survival mechanism where many of us, and you hear this complaint many times from people my age, I can't eat fruit, it gives me diarrhea. And they have no idea that the fruit isn't giving them the diarrhea, it's all the other bad foods they ate that are still plugged up in their system, and the fruit's just simply cleansing that out. So that's why you have to understand what you're doing when you take a solid food vacation. I have a 2-hour seminar on how to do this. My seminar is going to last 4 hours, so I have 31 related videos to back this up. We have to understand what happens with a cleansing reaction, because we're going to be releasing a lot of toxins, and if we can't get them out of the body fast enough, we can have the same flu-like symptoms that we see when we think we catch a cold or a flu, proving that it's not due to a germ, it's due to the toxemia. It's auto-intoxication-induced inflammation, not bacterial or viral-induced inflammation, as our so-called experts are taught. So we've got to become our own teacher. We've got to learn from our own experience. We've got to reset our feedback system. We've got to take a solid food vacation and go the duration so we can see what we're missing. So we can reset our feedback system so we don't have that all-gone feeling down here. And then when we go back to eating things that we grew up eating, we'll realize that that's not the right food, because we'll feel the difference. No different than the cigarette smoking analogy I gave moments ago. Take the person who hasn't smoked cigarettes in 20 years and give them some cigarettes again, they'll start coughing all over again, just like it was the first time. The only problem with eating versus smoking is we don't need to smoke, but we need to eat. That's why it's one of the hardest addictions there is. And that's why the Bible mentions it 74 times. For you Christians out there, read Isaiah chapter 58. That's the fasting chapter to help motivate you to realize this is how we take back control. Tolstoy understood this when he wrote that 25-page essay, the first step to that great book, The Ethics of Diet, saying the problem that we have is we have no self-control. Christians call it self-renunciation. Remember, Tolstoy said we're like on a two-story house. The bottom story is the evil life. We're addicted to the evil way of life. We're gluttons. The good life is up here on top, and then there are virtues and values that represent these steps. But the steps are sequential. We cannot skip the steps. And what happens to so many of us who have good intentions is we focus on the higher virtues, those higher values, and say, look at me, look how good I am. I'm trying. I'm trying to be generous. I'm trying to give myself and help other people. But I'm still struggling with all my complex lust, not realizing the simple lust of gluttony is what's given us all of our headaches and causing all of our problems. We've got to address that issue. That's the first step, Tolstoy's first step, to get up to the second story, the good life. We got to take back self-control. We got to reset our feedback system. We got to be able to learn from our experiences, not be controlled by them. And that's the power of a solid food vacation, and that's why I mention this over and over and over on my YouTube channel. Because I know there's only one solution to get us out of the mess we're in right now. It's got to be a bottom-up solution. Think of us as a bell-shaped curve, folks. For those of y'all may have studied this long ago, we used to use IQ to illustrate how this bell-shaped curve worked, where we have 2% of the population above 120 and 2% below 80. And all the rest of the 96% are in this bell-shaped curve, where we got the middle right here, and we got some that are close to being a genius and some that are close to being mentally challenged. Well, I like to think of having a bell of behavior, a bell of bad behavior and good behavior. Where on this half over here, we've got the good people, and the 2% would be the saints. Look at them, John, they're eating horrible food, but they're still saints. Well, it just goes to show you they're the exception. But the problem is the other half of that bell-shaped curve. The other 2%, or maybe 4% of the population, are psychopaths. These are the con artists. These are the ones trying to push your emotional button. And what we have to understand is we can't cut the edges of the bell off. The bell itself has to change. Each and every one of us plays such an important role right now in getting us out of the mess we're in. We've got to be the change which we wish to see. We've got to be an example for everybody. And tell as many people as you know that there's something they can do. It only takes 1 week out of their life to have a light bulb moment go over their head. What happens within 1 week on a solid food vacation, on juices especially? The average woman loses 7 pounds, the average man loses 10 pounds, and if you don't have any weight to lose because you're underweight, you'll start gaining weight eventually once you clean up that system. But the average person is way overweight, especially here in America. And that's what happens in the first week. In the first month, most women lose 20 pounds if they have enough in their pipes to lose, and most men will lose about 30 pounds. Of those 30 pounds, about 22 pounds can be garbage, the other 8 pounds can be fat. And of course, there's more than one component of weight. A lot of people say, oh, you're just losing water weight. Well, get a scale that measures your water percentage, and check your water percentage when you started your fast, and then check it 100 days later, and you'll notice that you may have gone from 50% water to 60% water. You didn't lose water, you gained water. Although you may still lose some edema. So if you do have edema, you will lose that. So it's interesting how we can have too much water and not enough water. Not enough water inside the cells, and that's what matters. And that's so important, especially as we age, because our scaffolding that holds everything in place gets sticky and dehydrated. That's why very few people can even touch their toes. They don't maintain any type of flexibility at all. And this is important to understand in the healing process because our nerves go through this fascia system. And if the nerves aren't communicating, we can have all types of symptoms telling us something's wrong. Everything from Parkinson's disease to dystonia. Simply because the body's not able to communicate, because we're simply dehydrated. So get you one of those scales, folks. Measure your water percentage. Even if you're drinking a lot of water, that doesn't mean your water percentage is going to be as high as it should be, because it's not structured water. You get structured water when you eat fruits and vegetables. That's why this solid food vacation on juices is so powerful. It addresses so many issues on so many levels, to a point where everything in your life gets better, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, or communally, as I like to say. Everything gets better because we're finally addressing the problem. We're not eating biophotons. We're not eating our species-specific diet. We have what Victor Hugo called a serpent inside of our body. We're lacking the coherent sunlight energy in the nucleus of our cells that allows us to feel one with everything. And that's the biggest problem we face on this planet right now. I coined that condition hypoheliosis. It's an abnormally low biophoton level. And I've identified hypoheliosis A and hypoheliosis B. A is on an individual level, B is on a collective level. So I took care of hypoheliosis A a long time ago, individually. But I still suffer from hypoheliosis B because the vast majority of the people on this planet are suffering from hypoheliosis A. I can't do any photon dumping and get any dumping back, as Fritz Albert Popp would refer to this. Helping us realize that these biophotons just don't allow our cells to communicate with inside of each other, but also across the species. It is our spidey sense. It's the most important reason why we need to start eating natural food in its natural state, in an unaltered state. Because what happens when we alter it? It alters us. And how do we know? It's called an illness or an ill behavior. It's called heart disease, cancer, and diabetes, or war, crime, and violence. These are symptoms, folks, because we are the enemy. And that's the best news in the world if we can wake up to that reality, that we are the enemy. That it's the bell, everybody in this bell-shaped curve, that is the enemy. But we could turn it around. We could become the heroes by being the best that we can be. By bumping up those biophotons, getting rid of hypoheliosis A, by flushing out Victor Hugo's serpent that's inside of our pipes. And the day we can finally eradicate hypoheliosis A on this planet, we'll finally get rid of hypoheliosis B. Ow! That's the day, my friends. We're all in for a treat.